All right, good. The guy in the far back can hear me. We're in good shape. It seems like it's been a month and a half ago since we were at Sweetwater, and I got several emails this morning saying, "Where is everybody?" They're at Sweetwater. So hopefully they're working their way here. We only have it at Sweetwater when we have more registrations than we can handle, but every other time it will be here. So next month in May we'll have Jim Wilcox here, unless Jim, we have a lot of registrations, and then I know he's trying to top his wife in registration, so they have that little competition going. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. A couple of announcements. Ladies, we have our Brighter Women's Conference. There, these postcards out on the table that you can pick up. June 7th, we have 3 outstanding speakers that morning. Gentlemen, I'm sorry you're not invited. Just Jim and I think I'm sending Jim to Indianapolis that morning to attend our very first Fridays in Indy. Also on May 3rd, is that right, Donna? 4th?
Yes.
Yeah, Saturday, May 4th, we have the Engage conference here, which is a free conference. There are at least 3 or 4 speakers within this room that will be at that Engage conference. So bring your friends and come along and be a part of that. A big congratulations, one of our early First Fridays friends, got a huge promotion recently, and he is now working with Greater Fort Wayne. Mr. Barry Schrock, congratulations. Make sure you congratulate Barry. This morning he's doing wonderful things down there, and he will also take you out for a free meal. Yeah, Barry. And then Brenda will be talking to Barry. So we have the privilege this morning to have a wonderful speaker. This is Indiana Wesleyan month. 1 month out of the year, we decided we're going to promo and highlight someone from Indiana Wesleyan to come speak. So before I introduce Eddie, will all the IW people that are here in the room please stand up? If they can, there we go. We've got several here. Les, our greeter, he is my boss. Kevin Jones in the back is our new regional dean for our campus here. He does a great job. If you ever go to any football or basketball games at Indiana Wesleyan, he is the voice of the Wildcats. So he does a great job. Jonelle Sherman is one of our corporate reps who handles several accounts here in Fort Wayne and does a wonderful job in the Marion area as well. Donna Meiser is our alumni director, and Donna does more things. Jim and I were talking about this morning. Donna does more things than 20 people do in a day. I don't know how she gets it all done. She has a great presence on LinkedIn. She'd be a great connection there. So, and then our wonderful speaker, Dr. Eddie Shigley. So, Eddie, boy, how can I do this? Eddie and I go way back. I've actually, Eddie's recruited me several times in my lifetime. You know, first time he recruited me was he was the youth pastor at College Wesleyan Church in Marion, Indiana, and he asked me, "Hey, would you come be a sponsor for these young people in my church?" And that's great opportunity for ministry. What I realized was I was the 5th guy on their church league basketball team because I could shoot back in the day, and I used to be able to run, so not so much anymore. So that was the first time Eddie recruited me. So then Eddie and his family moved to Oklahoma. He becomes the youth pastor at First Wesleyan Church in Oklahoma. And so I'm at Indiana Wesleyan working, and then I get an interview at Oklahoma Wesleyan, which is our sister school. I get a call from Eddie. "Hey, I hear you're coming out for an interview. You know, I'd love to talk with you about this and that." And what he needed was a left fielder to play in a church softball tournament that weekend and a leadoff hitter. So I believe we won the tournament, if I'm not mistaken. But Eddie is just a dear friend. He has his doctorate in leadership. He runs his own leadership. How long have you been doing duos?
About 10, 12 years.
Yeah. He's just done a great job. He's a professor in our ministry department down on campus. He has spoken all over the world with leadership and marriage. And I just know him as just a super, super dear friend. So please welcome my good friend, Dr. Eddie Shigley.
Thanks, Sherry. One of the fun things about him coming out to Oklahoma, and we picked him up at the airport for this interview, and we said, by the way, the interview starts at the softball tournament. That's when the interview starts.
What time? How did I do my first at bat? Do you remember?
I think you had a home run. Oh my goodness, fun stuff. One of the things I get to do at Indiana Wesleyan that I really, really enjoy is I run what's called the Kern program. The Kern program trains future pastors, and they get 2 degrees in 5 years, and so it's an accelerated program. They finish their undergrad instead of 4 years, they finish in 3 years. Instead of an MDiv in 3 years, they finish it in 2. So they get 2 degrees in 5 years. It's rigorous, it's tough, it's fun. But one of the things I love about it, that I love about my job, is I get to train and mentor future pastors. And then when they get out there and they're actually doing it, and they're in the church, and they're doing ministry, one of the things I get to do with them when they come back, and I get to do coaching conversations with them, is just simply dream with them. And dream and build vision and to celebrate wins that they get to have, which is so much fun for me. And to see these young pastors they go way beyond their mentor and exceed what I ever thought I could do. And that for me that brings joy. I'm also the men's women's tennis coach at Indiana Wesleyan, and that presents its own unique challenges as well. And I inherited a women's tennis team that's pretty good. I mean, actually, pretty good. And so they're ranked typically around 14, 15, 16 in the nation. But one of the things I noticed was, as we went down to our first national tournament, they're used to going to the national tournament, but they weren't playing excellent competition through the regular season. And so when they got to the national tournament with all these great teams, they looked like deer in headlights. Okay? And all of a sudden, the ball was bigger, the spin was greater, the speed was a lot thicker and faster, and they really didn't know what to do. And so through that process, we've got to change some things. And if you're part of any kind of corporate entity or business or organization, you know that change sometimes is hard. It's difficult for people. And I think it's difficult for any of us. And yet we also know that we either innovate or we die. Okay? We innovate or we die. We need to learn how to get better constantly. If we're not learning how to get better constantly, then we'll find ourselves on a shelf somewhere, okay? Or in a museum, observed like a dinosaur. And so instead of that, we want to grow, and we want to innovate, and we want to get better. And so we changed some things. We had to change how we practice. We had to change who we competed against. And part of that, in order to find great competition, all of a sudden we had to play D1 competition. We couldn't just play NAIA competition. We had to go play the Butlers and the Ball States and the Evansvilles and those kinds of things. And not only that, we had to go and travel to play great NAIA competition. We had to go down south. Okay? We had to go on the road. And we had to be these road warriors. And so that next year, as we changed how we practiced, we changed the competition, and I knew we had some really good talent, but they didn't believe in themselves. Have you ever seen talent with people, but they just didn't believe in it? And this could be in a corporate setting. They just didn't believe in themselves. Or an organization that really didn't believe that they had a great product to sell, but they didn't really believe it. They didn't embrace it. And so they had to believe it. And then our theme was We Believe. That was our theme. And so we went down south there in spring break, and we decided to play 9 matches in 10 days. Okay, I'm a little insane, I guess, a little bit. And through this whole conversation, the team was kind of looking at me, and they weren't really saying this, but I heard the whispers behind me, and they're saying, Coach is either crazy or he's brilliant, and the verdict is still out. We don't know yet. what this is. And as we progressed, and we played a lot of top 20 competition, and the first match we played against number 12, we beat them 5-4. We ended up beating number 6, beating number 8 that week. And I remember at the end of the week, when we beat number 6, at the end of the week, one of the girls pulled me aside, and this was the classic that we're moving forward, we're getting better. And she says, "Coach, we really thought you were crazy. We thought you were insane." And after we beat number 6, she said, "I just want you to know, I believe now. I believe." And when people have hope, and when people start believing in something that's greater than themselves, okay? When people start believing in the organizational mission and the organizational vision and the core values, and you all get on the same page, then you begin to move forward. And things really begin to change. And over time, if you go back to Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, over time, that flywheel begins to spin. And as you gain momentum, it begins to just pick up speed. And you have greater and greater and greater success. But there's got to be this uniformity in terms of we believe in the organization, we believe in the product that we're selling, we believe in the mission and the vision, and we believe in our core values. And now we can begin to move forward. And until they got to that point where they believed, this particular team believed, we're going to be stuck at about number 18 in the nation. We're just going to be stuck there. And we never made it to the Elite 8. And now we've gotten over that hurdle. And we're to the Elite 8 several times now. And then what's the next hurdle? How do we get better? Right? How do we move forward? How do we keep on getting better? And this is for any organization, it's for any team, it's for any concept. How do we move forward? How do we get better? Well, it takes a lot of work in the off season, doesn't it? It's not just in that performance. It's not just in that presentation. It's we have to do the hard work and the grit and the grind behind the scenes when nobody's looking, right? And sometimes that is blood, sweat, and tears to get to that next level. And that's where we want to be. I think that's where we want to be personally, okay? And we can apply these kinds of things to any aspect of our life, okay? That's where we want to be in our marriages, okay? That's where we want to be personally. We want to grow and that's where we want to get to be as far as a corporational organization, okay? So as far as what we do this morning and what we want to talk about, I'm a little conflicted because I've got notes here that are worth an entire class or a semester. You share like 30 minutes. It's like, this is like an impossible task. So I'm just going to start with a brief overview of some leadership theories. Okay, some leadership theories, and one of them, I want to start with this idea and this concept. Our leadership that we embrace, our leadership theory that we embrace, is influenced by a lot of factors. Okay? It's influenced by our home life, how we grew up, and how our parents even led us in the home. It's influenced by maybe some of our teachers or coaches as we grew up. It's influenced by some of the jobs that we've had and some of the leaders that we've had in our professional career. And we've had, I think for me personally too, I think some of the greatest lessons I've learned in leadership has actually been from bad leaders. Okay? And I won't have you raise your hand in case your boss is here. Okay? But think about this. Have you ever had a bad leader? Oh, man alive. Like, yes, absolutely. And I've actually learned a lot of great lessons through some bad leadership. And some of that is, hey, note to self, don't do that. Okay? Remember when you're a teenager and your parents did something that just drove you crazy? And it was kind of, note to self, don't be that kind of a parent. Have you ever found yourself being that kind of a parent? And here's the reality of human nature. We often do what we know. Okay? And what we know as a parent is how we were parented. Unless we are intentional about changing it. Okay? And so unless we are learning and growing by reading books and connecting with others and networking and growing through seminars or whatever the case might be, and then being intentional about how we lead others, we fall into some of the old habits of things that we actually said, note to self, don't do that. And so unless we are intentional and have a plan to be different or do things differently, then we fall into those same traps. Okay, so let's think about some leadership, and I think I'm going to start with some leadership theories. Okay, so your preferred leadership, and this is we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to end with transformational leadership, and this is some of the thinkers and leaders in the academic field regarding transformational leadership. But our preferred leadership style will greatly influence your management and philosophy of people. So how we view people will also affect our management philosophy. So we're going to look quickly at some leadership theories real fast. Okay, so theory X assumes that most people find work inherently distasteful. So most people find work is a necessary evil in life. Okay, and that's the assumption for this. That most people lack ambition, they have little desire for responsibility, they prefer to be directed. Managers who embrace this theory believe that people are only motivated by money, fringe benefits, and threats of punishment. Therefore, people must be constantly watched. So in college, I worked at a factory to kind of help my work my way through college. And in that factory job, I saw this leadership theory played out. That most people hate work, and so we have to watch them closely. And the only thing that they really enjoy about work are the fringe benefits, the paycheck. And they're looking for that check on Friday and just living for the weekends. And they really don't like their job. In fact, they hate their job. That's theory X. Okay? Theory Y assumes that a properly motivated worker is capable of directing his or her own efforts to accomplish organizational goals. People can be creative, they can be self-directed, they can solve their own problems. Managers who embrace theory Y push information or responsibility downward, and the work environment is established with proper motivation and right working conditions. Number 3, let's go to the great man theory. Okay, great man theory is the great man theory believes that there's only certain people who are born to lead. Okay, this was really popular in the United States, especially through the World War II era. Okay, think about some of the great leaders that we had during, good and bad, but they were great leaders. Okay, so you have Stalin, you have FDR, you have Churchill, and people who embrace this leadership believes that leaders are movers and shapers of society, and great leaders will arise when there is great need for them to rise to the surface. So leaders are head and shoulders above everyone else. Leaders are born, they're not made. And managers who embrace this theory believe employees would not know what to do without them. Okay, they love to pat themselves on the back. I had a boss one time who embraced this theory of leadership, and I remember we were in a executive meeting, and we're going over some budgets things, and I had a question at a particular expenditure, okay? And it was just really an innocent question about this particular expenditure, and his response to me was, in front of the entire group, his response to me was, "Don't question me. I am the benevolent monarch here." Part of me was like, did I just hear what I think I just heard? I am the benevolent monarch? I wanted to laugh at that idea, that concept. He embraced this idea of this great man theory, and that he is the only one that should be leading. And this idea of nobody has good ideas except for myself. I'm the only one that has good ideas. That's a leadership style that is very caustic, and good leaders will eventually run from that organization because they want to have some say in what is being done in the organization. And they not only do they want to have a seat at the table, they want to have a voice at the table as well. And with this type of leadership style, there's only one voice. There's only one voice. There's not room for any other voice. A charismatic leader is a person of vision. They formulate the vision, articulate the vision, they build trust in the vision, they achieve the vision. However, these leaders are all about them. They are selfish in nature and are motivated by self-interest. Managers who embrace this theory believe employees exist to make them look good. Okay? I had another organization, a boss who was a charismatic leader, and he was phenomenal. Like up front, unbelievable. He looked good. He sounded good. People wanted to be around him because he's very charismatic in his personality, but it was all about him. He was very narcissistic. You ever had a narcissistic leader? Oh my goodness! Wow. And I can remember we would meet weekly together. I was on the executive cabinet, and we'd meet weekly together. And as his leadership as the CEO, as the president of the organization, I can remember one time he said to me, his solution to everything was, you just need to fire them. You just need to fire them. And I felt like my job, okay, every week was simply to protect the people that reported to me. I felt like every week was just like this incredible like pressure to fire people. And he actually made this statement to me. He said, Eddie, if they don't make you look good, you need to just get rid of them. Because it's all about them making you look good. And I can remember saying to him, no, I don't think that's right. I really don't think that's right. I think I exist to help them succeed. I think it should be inverted in this process. And this charismatic leader, they're very persuasive, okay? This guy was extremely brilliant. It was very hard to kind of like argue with him because he was the smartest person in the room. He didn't just think he was the smartest person in the room. He was the smartest person in the room. And so it's really hard to contradict him. I remember another conversation that we had, and through this process, he pretty much, made the statement that, people have this kind of leadership lid, and so if they can't do the job, we need to get rid of them, and this whole conversation again. I said, no. I think we need to mentor people and help people to grow. And I said, listen, you are an extremely capable person. In fact, I wanted to kind of build him up a little bit, okay, because it fed his ego really well, so I was playing into that. I said, you're more capable of doing quality work and actually just volume of work than 99.9% of the people in America. And you expect everybody else to be there. They're just not there yet. And I think we need to lead them up. But because he plays the comparison game, here's his response to me. He says, so where are you in that percentage? That's just how he thinks. So where are you in that percentage? And I said, I'm at 99.8 right behind you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he loved that. He says, oh. He thought that was great, And I was like, and I remember one meeting, and something didn't go very well, and something that basically I was leading or I was in charge of, and it didn't go well, but someone who was underneath me was in their particular area, and he was upset about it. And again, he was back to this mojo of that's just ridiculous, that's terrible, that's just the dumbest idea in the world, and you should fire that person. And it just took everything within me to basically accept the blame. Because at that point, it'd been easy. They're not in the meeting, right? It'd been very easy to go, you're right, that was terrible, that was awful, and just push that blame on that person. And instead, and this is so hard. This is only the Holy Spirit helped me to do this, right? And I just said, actually, it was my idea. And I need to take the blame. And if someone needs to get fired over this, it needs to be me. Oh. And I'm not holding my breath, because I'm thinking he's going to fire me right there. And he didn't. He backed off. He backpedaled. And another time he's like, I can't believe I can talk all day about this guy. It's awesome. And how not to lead, okay? And another conversation that he had, and it's just hilarious to me and a little bit classic. But in this process, he says to me, he says, Eddie, as you're thinking about leading, and not only do people need to make you look good and all that sort of thing, he says, I forgot where I was going on that. It might come back up later. Oh well. Let's go to the transactional leader. In the transactional leader uses rewards or punishments to motivate employees. They believe in high accountability, low trust, high monitoring of work, immediate correction in performance or behavior in order to meet the desired goals. A manager who embraces this theory does not embrace people, but rather contracts. You're hired to do that job. I was hired to do this job. I am happy with your performance as long as you fulfill your contract obligations. There's no personal relationship with employees, only contractual relationships. In other words, it's phrases like, hey, it's not personal, it's just business. Or phrases like, what have you done for me lately? I can remember another organization, another leader, and I actually really liked this guy. Okay? I really liked him a lot. But it was interesting, he had an executive coach. And in the first 6 months or a year in the job, he really worked hard at building relationships with his direct report. And we were loving it because the previous CEO wasn't doing that. And so we are really enjoying this personal relationship with our boss, and we felt like we're growing and we're moving forward. He had a lot to add to us personally and professionally. We're great. And then we had a meeting with him one time. He says, listen, my executive coach is telling me that I need to back off in my personal relationship with you guys, that it's not professional. And we kind of pushed back a little bit and said, no, we're actually enjoying this, and we like this personal interaction that we have with you and this vulnerability that you have. And I said, well, why would he recommend you doing that? And this is the answer. The answer is, because if you have to fire anybody, it's a lot easier if you don't know them. Really? Is that how we want to lead? That if we have to fire somebody, it's a lot easier if we don't know them. I don't know, folks. I just can't buy in to that sort of leadership, and that becomes very transactional. How about a laissez-faire leader? This person takes completely hands-off. The let-it-ride approach to leadership. They neither try to control followers or guide and nurture them. The leader allows the followers to establish its own direction. It may be seen as an absence of leadership, or it could be the basis for self-leadership. Employees have the freedom to pretty much do whatever they want to do and whenever they want to do it. Now, people who are self-motivated and are really good at self-leadership and they take a lot of initiative, they will shine, okay, under this type of leadership style. But people who lack some motivation and can find themselves distracted by a lot of time wasters, they tend not to shine, and we have people going in opposite directions within the organization and with this type of leadership style. Okay, a servant leader. And a lot of Christian organizations love to embrace servant leadership, and they really get it from, in Matthew and Mark, there's a statement that Jesus makes, and in that statement he says, the Son of Man has not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. And so a lot of Christian organizations really pattern their leadership or try to pattern their leadership off of really this statement in the life of Christ. And so the servant leader has a genuine love, and the key word is genuine, a genuine love and concern for employees and desires the best for them. The manager who embraces this leadership style treats people with dignity and respect. This manager believes that he or she exists to serve their employees. However, this person will also care for the employees, even if it is not in the best interest of the organization. Okay, and this is, in my opinion, this is the one main fault of servant leadership, and that is they will care for that individual or that person so much so, sometimes at the detriment of the organization. Yep. I'm going to give you an example of that in just a little bit. This manager will serve the employee first before the organization. Therefore, these managers have a very difficult time reprimanding employees and or firing employees when it's absolutely necessary. I'm struggling right now as a coach. I have a particular player I like a lot. I mean, he's awesome, and he's got phenomenal character. He is the spiritual leader on our team. He's such a likable kid, and he was a phenomenal junior player. And his first 2 years he had to play for us. He also had a phenomenal college career. but he didn't put the work in his last 2 years. In the summer, he didn't put the work in to get better. And other people got better. See that? And last night I had a difficult conversation. You see this? When you care for people deeply, these conversations are hard, but necessary. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's what makes a difference. I think we should draw close to the people that we lead. I think we should genuinely love them and care for them and have concern for them. But we also have to have difficult conversations with them. And it's one of those moments that we had to basically accept the brutal facts. Okay? You have to accept the brutal facts. The brutal facts are he is not getting better and others are. And they're surpassing him. And I need to take him out of the lineup and put some other guys in. And you know what? Why? It's because it's for the good of the team. One person should never outweigh the good of the team. And we have to keep that in mind. It's for the good of the team. And actually, hopefully, it'll be for the good of him as well. Because sometimes, all of us, including myself, there's times when we need to be confronted with the brutal facts, and we need to be carefronted, and there's times we need to be reprimanded, and there's times we need a wake-up call. And I think that's important that we do that. But we can have that conversation with that love and concern for that person, but it doesn't mean we don't have that conversation. And I think that's the big difference as we shift from servant leadership to transformational leadership. I think that is, for me, that is the key, the thing that is drastically different. And I think we need to move to those hard conversations. And in that conversation with this particular guy, I mean, I embraced him. We hugged. We cried over this fact. But at the end of the conversation, he also agreed that he needs to step out for the good of the team. And that's hard, but it's also necessary. And sometimes people who hate confrontation, what happens in that scenario, in that situation, and when they hate confrontation and they don't know how to confront, because that could be a laissez-faire leader, okay? And I hate confrontation, I don't want to address it, I don't want to lead in this, because I don't like dissenting voices, and I hate that confrontation, so they don't enter into that mess, and we hate confrontation. Sometimes what happens is we have to work ourselves up for that conversation. And when we have to work ourselves up for that confrontation, then sometimes we come too strong. And we come too hard. Because we have to psych ourselves up. Okay, I gotta get this in, I gotta be tough, and I gotta work. And we get your personality is soft on people. And you work yourself up so much so you actually come too strong. And I think a person that really embraces carefronting on a regular basis realizes that hard conversations need to happen, but I can do it with great love and concern for that person. Does that make sense? And so as we get to the transformational leader, again, some very similar characteristics of the servant leader. But let's talk about what's a transformational leader as it's defined. Okay, the definition. Transformational leadership is the process whereby a person engages with others and creates a connection that raises the level of motivation and morality in both the leader and the follower. This type of leader is attentive to the needs and motives of followers and tries to help followers to both improve their performance and reach their fullest potential. Okay? Transformational leadership is concerned with improving the performance of followers and developing followers to their fullest potential. But they are also effective at motivating followers to act in ways that support the greater good of the organization rather than their own self-interests. If you've ever coached a team, and a team will go for the greater good of the team versus their own stat line, that team is positioned for greatness. Okay? I have a guy on our tennis team right now. He's the best doubles player we have. He's sacrificing for the team. It could be all about his stats. It could be all about playing number one. It could be all about the idea that I want to be All-American. It could be. But as we started this conversation, what is best for the team? The best for this team this year is to take our 3 best double players and spread them out over the 3 doubles lines. So he's playing number 3 doubles for us. What is he doing? He is sacrificing for the betterment of the team. That's what he's doing. And when we can embrace this, then an organization can do something. And we can really begin to move forward through this idea. So there's 4 factors in a transformational leader. So let's go through these factors, okay? The first one is idealized influence. The second is inspirational motivation. The third, we have intellectual stimulation. And the fourth, individualized consideration. And so let's go through each one individually. Okay, so what do we see through, for example, idealized influence? The leader believes in setting the right example in work ethic, attitude, and behavior. In other words, the rules still apply to me as the leader. The rules still apply to me as the leader. There are times when I felt like as the leader, the rules don't apply to me and I can do whatever I want. That is a dangerous mentality because we have to lead by example. That means the rules still apply to me. That I can't drive up to the building and my parking lot is taken, and so I take the handicapped parking spot. Okay? We can't do that. The rules have to apply to you. I have to do and act in ways that I expect my players to do and act. I have to follow that. I have to lead by example. And when I don't lead by example, the tendency is that people are going to follow that bad example too. They're going to naturally follow that. And not only that, but they'll take it to the extreme a lot of times. And so, by our actions, by our beliefs, by our values, by what we hold as precious, by what we do, oftentimes followers will follow that, and good or bad. And I think in today's society, I mean, look at the leaders in America today. Whether it's corporate leadership, whether it's politics, okay? I think there is a vacuum of leadership in terms of leaders that we can trust. Okay? Are you with me? There's a vacuum of leadership in terms of leaders that we can trust. And so we need to make sure that we are being leaders that set the right example in work ethic, attitude, and behavior, and we become trustworthy. The leader possesses a high standard of moral and ethical conduct. Wouldn't it be great if our leaders in America would simply have moral and ethical conduct? That would be awesome. That's something we can get behind. In fact, in a recent survey in corporate America today, what came back through that survey is the number one character quality that employees value of their leaders is integrity. They just want their bosses to have integrity. And then this is that idealized influence. They're deeply respected by employees, and there's a high level of trust. There's a sense of vision and mission. Let's go to inspirational motivation. The leader communicates high expectations. We need to set the bar high. We need to have high expectations, but those high expectations need to also be communicated. Unmet expectations create disappointment. Okay? Have you ever been disappointed with a person, whether it's a boss or whether that is someone that you're leading, or even with as a parent to a child? And a lot of times when you evaluate that, it's because there are unmet expectations. We've got to make sure we're communicating those expectations. So a leader communicates high expectations. They inspire followers to commit to a shared vision, motivate followers to achieve and produce more than they thought was capable. and develop a high level of team spirit. One of the things I really enjoy is with these young pastors is to help them to have a vision for themselves that they're capable of doing more than they thought they could have themselves. And I think one of the things that a transformational leader does is to believe in people before sometimes before they even believe in themselves. So believe in them so much so that you have a vision for them that's beyond what they have for themselves. And so often, and I found this to be so true, people often rise to the level of expectation. And so that's why the bar needs to be high. That's why the expectations need to be extremely high. Not unrealistic, but also high. Third, is we're going to look at intellectual stimulation. The leader stimulates and allows employees to be creative and innovative to solve problems. They allow employees to think outside the box. They think through things as a team and they share ideas, knowing that at the end of the day, the best ideas will be left on the table and they'll rise to the surface. And so in this process here, there's lots of freedom. Okay? There's lots of freedom to come up with creative ideas to figure out solutions to problems. And through this process too, it's the idea that this is a shared kind of thing, that as the leader, I don't have the best ideas. In fact, I want to hire people that are smarter than myself in every area in the organization. And I'm not threatened by that. I embrace that. I enjoy that. I love that. I want people to be better than I am. Okay? And if you're not hiring people that are like that, then shame on me, and shame on you, shame on all of us. And when people are quality people who really desire to work hard and to make a difference in an organization, they need freedom to flourish. And we want to give that to you. But we also want to make sure that credit goes where credit is due. Okay? So leaders, sometimes what we want to do is we sometimes want to accept the praise. Okay? We want to accept the praise and we want to deflect the blame and point fingers at people. And the opposite needs to be true. We need to deflect the praise to where it belongs to people in the organization and accept the blame, even when it's not our fault necessarily. But we're the leader. Okay? So it comes back on us. So you have to accept the blame. You accept the blame corporately, but it doesn't mean you don't have private conversations with others later. Does that make sense? So in other words, I'm not going to, or I don't want to, or I shouldn't throw anybody under the bus. If I'm the leader, then it's ultimately my responsibility, and I have to accept that blame. And this idea allows for that to happen. And so people want and desire to not just have a seat at the table, but also a voice at the table as well. Okay, let's go to individualized consideration. Okay, they create a supportive and caring work environment. The leader listens to the individual needs of the employee, including issues at home. Okay? Employees are not robots that just shut off home life when they arrive at the office. I mean, I don't know, I can't do that at times, right? We're much more integrated than that. Okay, what happens at home affects us. And so we need to have care and concern for even what happens at home. So leaders act as mentors, coaches, and advisors. The leader is interested in helping the employee become a better person and employee. Okay, so the transformational leader cares for the development of the employee. However, the good of the organization comes before any single employee. And a coaching mantra or a coaching values is always what? Team before individuals. It's always team before individuals. Now, transformational leadership that's embraced by a couple of academic people, Kouzes and Posner, and they have a fantastic book. Write the title of this book down, get this, purchase it if you don't have it. It's called The Leadership Challenge. And they're actually two Christian guys that work at state universities, and they come together and they come up with a concept of leadership, which is fantastic. They also have, this is for businesses, this is for organizations, but they actually have a shorter version of the book. I think the Leadership Challenge for the Christian organization, if you're interested in purchasing that as well. They've kind of taken these transformational leadership concept, but they have different terms for them. Model the way, inspire a shared version, challenge the process, enable others to act, encourage the heart, that sort of thing. one of the things that we want to do is that we want to develop high-performance teams. And so Kim Blanchard, which is one of my favorite authors when it comes to servant leadership, he's out there. He comes up with kind of an acronym for PERFORM. This is the last time I'm going to end on this, didn't I? Okay, an acronym called PERFORM for high-performance teams. We're going to fly through this, and we're going to open up for Q&A real quick, okay? So, wow, I think I've got like about 18 more pages of notes. Okay, so that's awesome, okay? That's a true academic right there. Okay? So, acronym for PERFORM. P stands for purpose and values. So, purpose and values. High-performance teams share a sense of purpose and a common set of values, which includes a compelling vision. In other words, do we have a shared set of values? Okay, I worked for a guy who came up with phenomenal core values and a phenomenal mission statement. But here's his mistake. He didn't include anybody else in the process. Okay? It was his ideas, it was his mission statement, it was his vision, it was his core values, and it wasn't anybody else. And as he sold this, and as compelling as he was in selling this to the organization, it just didn't fly. And the reason why it didn't fly, nobody had buy-in. Nobody participated in the process. And high-performance teams allows people to participate in the process so that they have buy-in. If you don't have buy-in, you might as well think of something else to do because it's not going to be embraced. You can just pound it and pound it, but it doesn't matter how many times you say it. Okay? And as I worked for him for 5 years, he said it every time he publicly got up to speak. And it still didn't sink in because we got to have this shared purpose and values. Number 2 is empowerment. High-performance teams have the authority to make decisions. However, with this authority comes responsibility and accountability. What I've seen in this whole process of delegation, when I first started off as a youth pastor or whatever, I felt like I had to do everything. Okay, there's two major problems with that. Okay, one is, well, I'm the person that's paid to do it, therefore I should do it. Well, I'm not allowing volunteers to actually embrace their giftedness. Number 2, I thought, and this was a terrible idea, but I thought, if something needs to be done right, then I need to do it. Well, that was stupid. Okay. No, I should actually get people who are better than I am to actually do it, and it will actually be better. And so in this idea is sometimes, even when we delegate responsibility, sometimes we don't give them authority. That's a critical mistake. When we hand over responsibility, also give them the authority to change things and make things different. Third, the R is relationships and communication. High-performance teams are committed to open and honest conversations in a way that exhibits care, dignity, and respect for one another. F is flexibility. High-performance teams are interdependent. The leader of the team often changes based on needs and talent. Members are willing and capable of changing and adapting according to the internal or external environment. I don't have to lead every meeting. Why would I do that if we're talking about something that I'm not the expert on? Find the expert, that's part of your organization. Have them lead the meeting on that particular thing. That only makes sense because they're the expert in the field, so allow them to take the lead in that particular thing. O is optimal productivity. High-performance teams get the job done in a timely manner with excellence. They're committed to significant results. They take pride in their work and then hold each other accountable for a job well done. Okay? I think that one of the keys to organizations, and sometimes this doesn't happen because we feel like someone's looking over our shoulder. No, we have to look at it differently. Okay? Teams that really perform well have a high accountability to organizational goals. Okay? They have high accountability to organizational goals. And that flows up and down and across. And that has to happen, I think, for us to have optimal productivity. 6, our R is recognition and appreciation. How high-performance teams receive positive feedback and encouragement. They are motivated to perform for the good of the team and the company, not just self-interest. And 7, or M, is morale. High-performance teams take pride in their work. They have a strong team spirit and a sense of unity, and they know how to celebrate the win. Okay? That's it for now. Okay? Sorry. Thoughts, questions?